Hi, I'm Rick.
Hi, I'm Oscar. Rick, you have something for us about Azure Policies?
Azure Policies. So yeah, I would like to dive right in because Azure Policies enable you to define rules of how you work with Azure, right? And since more and more companies start working with Azure and have rules and regulations on how to name things and certain settings that you need to have enforced on your resources, it would be nice to have a tool to manage all of that and to actually enforce that in your environment.
Okay, so it's about control over your resources, what gets spent, how things are configured,
And
what are
even
your
naming,
rules.
Yeah.
So what we in the old days used to have, I want this, and then the ops department or the tech department said no.
Yes. Now you can have an automated system tell you no, so it's faster. You get a faster no. No, but all kidding aside, this actually helps tremendously in making sure that your resources adhere to the rules and regulations that you have inside of your company, and it can even help you with compliance, like ISO or SOC certifications. So if we go to my screen, we can see the overview of Azure Policy. And then the cool thing is there's a lot of policies already there by default. However, if we go to definitions on the left-hand side, here we can see all of the definitions of Azure Policies that are available. And if you see all the way to the top, you see Betabit 001. So there's actually a custom policy definition that I created that I would like to enforce on my Azure environment. Now, first of all, let's see, you can just say I would like to have a policy definition to be added. You could tell the system where that policy lives, so you actually choose a subscription where you define the policy.
And that's where it lives, or what is that the resources it control?
No, it's really the subscription where the policy definition lives. So you can create a policy definition but not use it.
Yeah.
But you can also create a policy definition and then assign it to multiple subscriptions or resource groups or resources.
Okay, so this is a definition on subscription level, so it doesn't live in a resource group like the normal resources we used to.
True.
Okay.
And then if we go a bit down here, we can see that there's this JSON structure where it actually says you can learn more about policy definition structure over here. And then the cool thing is if you click the import sample policy definition from GitHub, it takes you to an Azure GitHub that actually has a lot of samples of how to write a policy. So for instance, if you go in samples and you say, I would like to go to resource group, then right here it has a audit resource group with logs, or you can have specific tags that you want to enforce that tags are there. So right here you have enforce group tags, and then in the policy you can see the entire policy that would make your Azure environment check that your resource groups always have tags. And it's your deployment will not be valid without specifying those. But if we go back to where we just were, so back to the policy definition, I created one myself already. It's called Betabit 001. And if we look in here, we can see it has a name. And then for storage accounts, it actually says that if the API version is 2019 and support HTTPS traffic only is set to false, or in case of a different API version, if support HTTPS traffic only equals false, then we deny creating the resource group or the resource. So in this case, it's specifically targeting storage accounts, what we see right here. So if you create a storage account on a resource group or a subscription where this policy is enforced, you have to specify only HTTPS traffic for the storage account. Now I would like to show you something else, because right here we have this assign button, and then you can say where does this apply.
But you cannot, well, especially with systems that are already running, multiple teams, maybe with some other options there, because some can get a bit more creative than the financial system. So you can define like what does this target. So you set this here. Okay.
Yeah, and then the cool thing is also that now we have a deny policy, which means you cannot create anything if you don't have the correct settings. But you can also make an audit policy that actually tells you in your compliance overview, these resources do not comply with the rules that we have, but it won't break anything.
Okay, so that's my next question. Like, you apply this in an environment that has all kinds of things there.
Yeah.
If you put deny, it's already there. Will it remove it? I guess not.
No. So it will. This will work for future resources, and if you want to have something that audits, so that it gives you insight in all of the resources that do not comply, then you get something that looks a lot like the policy overview right here. So this dashboard actually tells that 2 out of 56 resources are completely compliant with all of the Azure policies that are currently active. Which also means you could have your own policy here be flagged as, hey, this storage account doesn't have that flag that we want it to have.
But these are, of course, then also the policies we've been seeing when using Azure for a while. So Azure themselves are now making the rules up as they go and just changing the system. They use this themselves, like, well, by now we think TLS 1 is not a good idea.
Yeah, completely true.
So that's all these default policies that are in there. It's them creating that, like, this is the way to organize this at least.
Yep.
And on top of that, you can create your own.
Yes, and then the cool thing about creating your own, and that's something that I discovered recently, is let's first assign the policy that I had to a resource group. So as I said, you can have it be assigned on different levels. And then for the Betabit 001, as you can see right here, I have this assignment that it's actually assigned to. Here it has a scope. It's a bit small, so let me enhance that a bit. Here it has a scope of a specific resource group. So this everything before the slash is the subscription. So I have applied this to the resource group Betabit 001. Now, please take into account what's happening. So I'm going to go. I can just click probably. Or not.
And is the scope you have, is that always a resource group, or can you go more narrow?
No, you can even go on specific resources. And you also have the possibility to, for instance, say, I would like to have it on subscription level, except for these resources.
Okay,
you can
so
even exempt resources. Now, the cool thing should be that if I remove everything there, I can go into this resource group that actually has that policy applied. So if I go to policies right here, I can see, if I go to policies right here, that's one step too far. If I go to policies right here, I need to be a bit, well, I can actually see that I can see all my policies, and it also has the Betabit 001 there. So currently it's 100% resource compliant. Now I'm going to go into that resource group and I want to create a storage account, right? Because that's what my policy is about. So I can have a storage account, and I think it will find it if I do this, or at least I hope so, or it doesn't. Normally I always go to the type of resource I would like to create and then create from there. Now, of course, because we are in a demo, my laptop is acting up, but I can probably do this.
There's a storage account right over there in green.
That might be faster.
Oh, and it's gone.
Yeah, because I clicked migration instead of storage, which I wanted to click, and then we have create right here. Now, one of the downsides of policies is the fact that I'm going to pick the correct resource group where I actually wanted to create that one, so Betabit 001. I'm going to have a really nice storage account name. That might be a bit too long.
Yeah.
That looks kind of good. I'll go West Europe. I'll go standard LRS. And then on advanced, of course, here's the check mark for the HTTPS only traffic. I can still unclick this. Furthermore, I can even go to review and create, and the review step, well, it actually says that there is an issue. So let's see what the issue is.
So actually it's calling you out. It's like on the review step, like also in line. I can imagine it's difficult to put validation errors in line and check this, but
True.
This review step is pulling it through the policies. Like
However, yesterday when I was creating this went fine. And I could even click the create button, and only then you could get this massive JSON that actually holds the text somewhere of what was happening and why it didn't work.
Okay, so you're thinking it's not really a validation; it's a front end.
No, I need to give you something more, because I'm going to go to Betabit 001, the resource group again, and then what we did was we wanted to create a storage account that didn't have HTTPS enabled. Now, most of the time, that will just go beyond the review step, and even if you click create, then while creating, it will run into the policy.
Mm-hmm.
However, apparently, somewhere overnight, the Azure Portal got an update, while it's now at least validating on the review step. But I would like to show you one step further. So let's say we go into a custom deployment. I have it right here. And I'm going to go into a custom deployment, and I'll open up Visual Studio Code just to show the ARM template that I was working with. So it might be on recent. I think it's on recent. There we go. I would like to open that, please. Make it a bit larger. My machine is actually acting up. So what we can see here is that we have a default value for the name being Betabit storage,
mm-hmm.
and that the storage account HTTPS, the default values is false
mm-hmm.
for this ARM template. And then we create a storage account based on this ARM template. So going back to the portal, we can see that we can load up my template that I would like to publish, and I say load file, and then I can check on my temp folder under my beta talks for a policy. I have this storage account JSON. Here we can have everything, and if I say save, and I need to have all of my information in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see that there's this really small glitch in the... So what you see right here is the fact that we have storage account HTTPS, and it's set to false. I need to check this really quick because I think we don't have the correct template. Just a second. Because this needs to be a bool, and I think that's where it went wrong. Because now we can check true and false.
Mm-hmm.
And then please have a look that I can now select true or false for the storage account HTTPS parameter,
mm-hmm.
but I'm in the wrong resource group. Now see what happens if I select my other subscription and my beta talks. This one automatically, although the default is false, goes to true, and it even makes the field read only, and it states my own message that I put in there, beta talks, : you haven't selected HTTPS for your storage account. So this UI automatically calls actually into policy, validates what you're trying to do, and gives you feedback in the editor itself.
Yeah, this is also a more generic deployment. You can deploy everything from here with a template. I can imagine it's easier to build in here than in every other create resource panel.
I can, however, this might be the first implementation of many.
Yeah.
So if they have that available right here, chances are this is going to go throughout the entire portal, and especially since the fact that yesterday I could still click that create button and I wouldn't get a message, and today I already get a validation message on that step. So I'm going to get an even better experience in the Azure portal using policies.
But are you though? Because in the end, you're not clicking in the portal, right?
Of course. However, your developers are.
Yeah.
And then what you can do, you can also use a policy to limit SKUs that people can use.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have, okay, you can create a VM, but only B1, B2, and nothing more. So it limits the list for you.
It limits the list. It therefore the spend you might have, so no one accidentally can spin up something amazing. And you can also limit, for instance, this needs HTTPS and it needs to be in a VPN or whatever. You can really put the rules there. Would you go for, depending on organization, I guess, but for these are our rules and build with it. So just making Azure smaller for developers, or would you go for monitor, put the extremes out, and put a rule there if something goes wrong, or open up a bit when we...
You know what the answer is going to be.
It depends.
It depends, because I think, as far as I'm concerned, on dev, you might want to filter out some of the extremes where you don't want to spend 28,000 euros a month on one VM, which is possible in Azure. But as far as I'm concerned, you shouldn't limit your developers too much. It's kind of like you need to be local admin on your dev machine, right? You don't want to limit developers too much and limit their creativity in actually upfront saying you cannot use this type of service.
I'm thinking about, like, for your developer groups, like, you definitely cannot use a VM.
I agree. I tend to agree on that one. Yes,
but sometimes you need them. But this is really powerful to build your own rule set. And
it is
to comply and to have monitoring on what you're actually doing. Because I'm also really interested in the audit, because I'm always in environments that already exist.
Yes.
And of course, Microsoft is doing their best to provide you these rules and saying, well, this could go better, and these days we shouldn't do this anymore.
But that's actually, this is that extended. So like you used to get this message where they said you should only have one admin with all access rights on a subscription. That's a policy. You should have MFA enabled for your administrator users. That's a policy. So you could create policies also for naming conventions. A research group should always start with RG-. You can enforce that. And you can audit it for existing resources to see how far are they off from actually being compliant to the rules that you have. And I think that even the ISO 27001 and the SOC compliance stuff in the end is, let's say, just a policy checking the validity of your resources.
This sounds great.
I think it is.
I think we should definitely start using it in some places where it's kind of Wild West.
We might want to put out some policies that us as a company think are good policies for general development.
Like, what would be my next question? Like, are there any almost like good principles? Like, well, if you're using this part of the stack, use this, but then go one level up. Because I can imagine the things Microsoft are pushing right now are minimum.
They are also pushing your your storage account should only have HTTPS access. But that's now just a warning.
Yeah.
And you need to yourself go to the compliance dashboard, see why it's not compliant, or go to the security center and see the warnings. I think for new resources, it would be good to enable that kind of stuff. So maybe it's already a big step to take the default that Microsoft currently audits on existing resources.
So you mean treat warnings as errors, right?
And make that errors for future resources. Yeah, I think that might be a good step.
Sounds great. Thank you for this week.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for watching.
See you next time.
Bye.